I'm Kyle.
I'm Cody. This week, for some weird reason, Kyle wrote down that the title of this film is Mildly Annoyed Rudy, or Ruby, which I don't get the reference.
Max and Ruby.
At first, I thought it said Rudy, and I thought you were comparing. Okay, that's a reach at best.
Mad Max and Mildly Annoyed Ruby.
Okay, but that's a kid's show about bunnies, my dude.
Well, it's sibling bunnies, but yeah. No, I got this is the first thing I came up with. But yeah, we're doing Mad Max this week. It's maybe a little out of the wheelhouse, but I think it's an interesting choice. It's very different from a lot of the later ones that are well loved. It's a lot less. It's a lot more subtle and or a lot more, like subtle in like less set dressing subtle, not like I would say actually subtle. But yeah, it's very different from what you'd expect based on the other ones. There's not even really a desert in this one.
No, and it definitely blurs the lines between like when you say a dystopic movie. I don't think anybody is like, hey, Mad Max is like, at least the original wasn't all that dystopic at all.
It's dystopic. It's dystopic. It's not post-apocalyptic.
Yes, but I would have rather preferred to watch like the post-apocalyptic version of this film that wasn't made in 1979, or at least done better in 1979.
This is pretty. This movie's actually held like a Guinness World Record. I don't know if it still holds. I don't think it still holds it, but it's held the Guinness World Book of Records for highest grossing film in comparison to its budget. The budget was about $400,000, and it made $100 million.
Yeah.
So that's like wild, and then that made propelled into a couple more movies. This is the brainchild of George Miller with his producing partner. What was his name? Byron Kennedy, who was the guy who got him into filmmaking. But yeah, famous Australian movie starring Mel Gibson before he got problematic sometime in the 90s. So he's pretty young in this. But yeah, this is
sorry, I was just looking at what came out in 1979 that this actually competed with, and like there's some really good movies in this. Like Star Trek the Motion Picture came out in 1979.
I don't know, that's a good movie. A lot of people would disagree with that.
The first Alien came out.
Yep, that's a good movie.
Apocalypse Now, The Black Hole.
Never heard of it.
Something called Stalker, The Black Stallion.
Black Stallion I've heard of.
The Warriors.
Oh, that's a good movie.
Amityville Horror.
People like it. It's popular. I haven't watched it.
Escape from Alcatraz.
Maybe. But yeah, this is
Monty Python's Life of Brian.
Yeah, people. Yeah, that's popular. I haven't actually seen the Monty Python movies. I've seen like bits. I haven't seen like the movies.
Rocky 2, Nosferatu the Vampire.
They remade Nosferatu at one point, didn't they? I haven't seen that.
Zombie 2,
which you can watch on the spin-off podcast with me and Curtis, where we review Zombie 2.
Salem's Lot.
I haven't seen that.
These are all the movies that we could be doing over this movie.
What, do you not like? Yeah, granted, this isn't like as exciting as some of the latter ones, but this is a pretty decent looking movie.
I really wouldn't say decent. Like it sounds good on paper. Like it checks a few boxes for me. In all actuality, the way that this picture quality turned out wasn't great, and I watched it in 1080p.
I watched it on a VHS.
So I don't think that's really like a talking point for the purpose of this conversation.
Hey, it was still in widescreen because Mad Max was one of the first Australian films filmed in widescreen.
But we're not from Australia, and like...
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we're so much...
I don't know how widescreen's a selling point.
We got so much over Australia. we're the cold version of Australia. That's all that we are. Like, we're on... What's the population of Australia?
30
Yeah,
million.
so we're on par with Australia. We're not like we're not ones to be talking down on
Was
them.
I right though?
30 million? I didn't look it up. I thought you
Yeah.
looked it up. I thought when you said 30 million, I didn't think you were doing a joke.
Oh no, I just threw out a number. Oh, I was actually very close. It's 25 million. So
So we
as
got
5
yeah,
million people off,
yeah, we got like 9 million on them, something like that.
uh like 15 million more on them.
Oh, aren't we like 35?
38.
Oh, thought we were. Yeah, I suppose we've grown since I last looked that up.
We're also a lot thinner than probably the last time you looked it up.
But yeah, that's but yeah, Australia, yeah. But yeah, actually, yeah, I think the explanation here is that nukes fell between this movie and Mad Max 2, and that's why the future ones look like that. And like this was kind of like the preamble to like a nuclear war, where this was like stuff
Yeah,
happening
so
in.
so my thought process was like, because I don't think that it's ever actually fully explained within the movie itself. I just assumed that Australia was like a safe haven towards where like nukes actually went off, and Australia was completely missed.
And just got like the after
I mean,
effects.
there's not really
Yeah.
like, yeah,
Yeah.
kind of, because like,
Because yeah, if you launch, I think science tells us if we launch a certain amount, it just fucks everything up. So, but yeah, I think yeah, this is more just like, oh, society is collapsing in this one because it's like there's
mhm.
lawlessness in the streets, and whatnot. I think I don't know if they confirm it in Thunderdome 2 in Mad Max 2, but in Thunderdome they do confirm that nuclear weapons occurred at some point. Because I watched Thunderdome last night. Sorry, Mad Max 3 Beyond
Yeah.
Thunderdome. The weakest of the franchise, but it's all right. I put out a tweet last night. It was just like Mad Max 3 is one of the few movies where child actors are introduced halfway through and the movie gets better. Like in direct correlation to the child actors being part of the movie. It's weird. But this one's also, I think this one's definitely unique for the franchise. I think the latter ones all follow a pretty like I'll say this, Mad Max gets a little formulaic in the later three quarters of the franchise. Like they all kind of end similarly. Even this one does. Like I'm stretching and saying that Mad Max is not doing that. It's just a little. It's like mildly different. It's still like it's very much tension, few action scene, tension, action scene, and then big car race at the end. But yeah, this one's a little. If you think the later few get like bogged down in that at all, you might want to get to this one. It changes that a little bit. This honestly feels like a prequel if you like watch the later ones.
And that's what I was saying earlier. Is like it doesn't have quite that feel to it that I would have liked to have seen in it to make it you could take out all of the preamble of this film, all the lore behind it, and just be like, yeah, a cop's wife gets murdered and he goes on a revenge spree against the biker gang that killed his wife. You don't need to add in like you've already got a decent enough story that you don't need to be like, oh, but yeah, this place is also like civilization is collapsing in the intermedium of like the plot line of this story. It just like,
Like the prequel vibes of this actually kind of like, even though that's not accurate, but because it's like its own movie and whatnot, and this is the first one. But like this, it goes with such a different tone. It gives off those prequel vibes because they change so much in regards to the later ones, which is good, frankly. Like I could absolutely see like some bizarre alternate universe where like someone else gets the rights to Mad Max and it's not attached to like George Miller, because I think George Miller
mhm.
has the rights to this in Australia where these things are produced. So I don't like. I think other people have distribution rights, but he's the only one that can make them. So, which I think is good because I think I watched this and like am like terrified because there's like an alternate. I know there's an alternate reality where they hand this off to someone else and they just make like a really generic cop movie for the sequel, and that the
Yeah.
world would be so much worse for that because like That happened to so many franchise that like come in this period. Like it happened to RoboCop and like Predator and all these things where they go into like they just start becoming really generic after the second one. And there's just enough like there's not enough post-apocalyptic elements in this to like differentiate it. And yeah, just thankfully George Miller seems to be like a pretty capable creator. So that balances it out. Obvious, and then he would go on to make Road Warrior and
I just don't know how much I can credit George Miller for this.
okay, well, a little background on George Miller. George Miller actually he's a surgeon originally, and then meets up with
Hmm.
Byron Kennedy, and is just like Byron's like an amateur filmmaker, and they end up getting together, and like George Miller ends up taking like his expertise in like car accidents and like bringing it into this movie
Yeah.
because like I think it says something like, "Oh yeah, 3 of his friends died in car accidents, and he worked in an ER, so he's like seen them all," which is some
Oh, that's
yeah,
dark.
no, and like like not everyone reacts to that sort of thing by making a whole movie about people getting run over, especially like the real like it's
Hmm.
noticeable like in the scene way at the end where the one guy gets run over by a semi truck of just like, oh, this guy just got ran over and it wasn't like a big gooey mess. Oh, which leads me to another point. This film is kind of like like this is gonna come sound like an insult, but I don't mean it. I don't really mean it like one. It's kind of baby's first exploitation film because it's got like it's got a lot of stuff that you can't do in like American cinema, like Hollywood cinema, where it's got like it doesn't have like nudity, but it has like a lot like heavy part like the heavier end of partial nudity at points. It doesn't have like gore, but it has blood and like pretty realistic and graphic injuries shown that are like aren't like trying to shock you with visual effects, but like, oh, that's scary. Like you go into the scene where the one character's in the hospital bed earlier, and you just like her under the blanket, and like you notice that like, oh, there's some lumps that aren't there that should be, and it's pretty it makes some shockingness, but it's not like doing all that stuff that would get it banned in like United in the UK or the United States or whatever. It is banned in it has been banned in 2 countries. One of them just because this film came out like right after like a gangland killing that was like really similar to something that happened in the film, so they banned it then. But it's since been but it's since been unbanned in like the 21st century. But yeah, I kind of got that vibe for it. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, kind
Yeah.
of.
It's like someone's done like a good job of like making taking an exploitation film and making it like just an R rating. So like you're not going to get in too much trouble with
Yeah.
people. Like you could like it's got some realistically when you think about it pretty dark and graphic stuff, but it's nothing you couldn't necessarily take a teenager to see or even like an older preteen. Maybe it wouldn't bother them too bad. It's not PG-13 obviously, but it's definitely like a 14A easily or an R, however you do that. But yeah, it's pretty neat, I think. The car scenes are pretty interesting. It uses like essentially the premise is that Max is part of these teams of like dedicated highway car chase cops that chase down people going on street-based rampages. Also, Australian police cars, some of them are like yellow occasionally. Hence why they're yellow in this movie.
They look like American taxis too much for me to really be like happy about that.
I don't know. Is it a bad
Yeah, sure, it's kind of cool, but
I don't mind the idea of cop cars being yellow. I think people should generally be able to see them. But yeah, I
yeah.
think it's based off like I'm just looking at some stuff. It seems to be based off these old yellow highway patrol cars, essentially. I don't think they were otherwise widely used, but otherwise like white cars, but they had like yellow highway control cars in some places, which is where this would have been, and that it was based off that. So because that's what I'm seeing that looks sort of similar. Oh, I'm just gonna look this up because I found a thing called they're called interceptors, which are special police cars. But yeah, they I guess it's a thing. Like police interceptors are a thing in Australia. Yeah, it's essentially they're like racing cars essentially that are built to like chase down speeders and whatnot for car chases. And yeah, in this movie, it's like a whole thing, except for Max, who drives a thing called. Oh yeah, okay, yeah. Max just only Max has the interceptor, and everyone else has pursuit vehicles or vehicles that are labeled pursuit. Most of them are yellow, but some of them are black. And this is where we get the like famous Mad Max car, which has the big engine on the front, which is actually, I guess, not like an actual engine in real life. It's just like a dummy, it seems like. Yeah, yeah, the supercharger protruding through the bonnet. For looks only, it was not functional. This is a whole thing. And they're yeah, the premise of this is they're highway cops, and they're particularly dedicated to like chasing down road gangs, which are becoming a problem in Australia. Which I don't know. Yeah, it's interesting. Some of the streets in this aren't exactly like big fancy highways. They're like, I think there's one thing that's just like a straight up, basically like a one lane, like paved road, which is interesting. Or like it's like two lanes, but it doesn't fit like a semi truck.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out. I was trying to figure out like what the traveling time of traversing, because like oil is one of the bigger factors in this movie. Like just how long it would actually take to fully traverse Australia, and I think the lowest time was something along the lines of 5 days by car.
Yeah, I think they're only in one region though. Oh yeah, also here's another thing. Speaking of oil, one of the things that kind of inspired this was like a 1973 oil crisis in Australia, where like things got kind of nasty about like get people getting oil because just like there was so little of it, so there'd be like mile long
Mhm.
lineups, and like some people would try to cut ahead, and it would be like met with violence. I didn't look up the whole thing, but it sounds like pretty wild. And I guess George and Kennedy just took that to its logical extreme come the later movies. So that's kind of an interesting little idea that this is all based off like some 70s Australian oil crisis. And that just inspired four apocalyptic movies.
It's definitely something to consider as we're moving away from
Yeah.
oil, I guess. There's always going to be some like stupid
Oh
diehards who
yeah.
are like, no, we need to have gas powered cars.
Yeah. No, I'm not one of them. I was feeling I let my car get a little too low because it was raining the last couple of days, and I was like down to like the last notch. So I decided to fuel up in town, even though I like a fuel tank here, because I felt I needed to like learn my lesson about letting my car get that
Mhm.
low, and it was like $100. It filled it, but just barely. Like it could have thrown like another 30 cents in that, I think. But in the whole time, I'm just like, ugh, I'm getting an EV next time.
I like to think that I was comparing earlier like on in my thought process as like, well, if it takes like 5 days to travel across Australia, or sorry, I looked it up. It's actually only about 3 days to travel from Melbourne to Perth in Australia, over 3,400 kilometers by car. But I was like, well, how do you like Australia is a fairly big place, and like as a storytelling direction, it's kind of a cool thought process. But I'd like to see something like this about the slow descent and collapse of civilization, but in like more of a vacuum. So my thought process was, what would happen if you did the exact same scenario and the exact same like plot line, and instead of doing it in Australia, you did it in Prince Edward Island.
Yeah, you'd be able to get across it in like 5 minutes.
For anybody who's not Canadian, Prince Edward Island's on the, I want to say, west coast of Canada. I could be
Yeah,
wrong. I'm
that's
not
no,
really
east,
good at directions.
east. West is BC.
Is it
Yeah,
east?
west is BC, east is
Um,
Maritimes. But yeah, there are a couple of 3 islands that get the whole provincial treatment despite like no one living there. I think yeah, do they I think they just get 3 senators. They get 3 senators and none of it gets 1.
it is 164,000 people on PEI.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's like that city and it's like yeah, it's like a city's worth of people and that's it.
And to like bicycle across PEI, it takes, like, people do it in 5 days, but it can be done in 1.
Yeah, that's just like
Like, so just a story about like roaming bike gangs in like PEI would be like
it's just the theme song is just like a
interesting.
metal cover of like I can ride this bike with no handlebars.
Sure.
This is just a parody we're doing now. Just make a better version of that Joseph Gordon-Levitt movie where he's a bicycle courier and takes his job way too seriously.
I'm just like, more so it's just like I think if there was like ever actually a collapse of civilization, the fact that PEI is so like, well, it's an island, right?
Yeah.
So like that has its own like issues, like people would be starving because of lack of transportation from mainland. I'm assuming some form of nuclear fallout, radiation, stuff like that would kind of render a lot of the
Well, I don't think they'd starve. I think they just eat a lot of fish.
wildlife population.
I think that's how people like that
Well, I'm
live.
just
Yeah.
making the assumption that if the mainland was hit so heavily by nukes that like it would push a lot of the like natural wildlife away from that part of the ocean.
Yeah, I think at that point you're dealing with a bunch of like, oh, everyone just like it's the stuff where like some scientist would just be like, oh yeah, no, your skin just boils alive at this sort of temperature, and like that's just the
Hmm.
horrible stuff you don't want to listen to. But yeah, Mad Max plot time. I think we're introduced to the film, and it says it's happening a few years from now, which is a weird thing for them to say in 1979, and now it's 20, like a few years from 1979 or a few years from like now.
2021.
Yeah, we're just gonna lose cell phones in a couple of years, and all have to drive muscle cars for whatever reason. That's just,
I mean,
it's just like we revert to muscle cars and motorcycles.
but they still had phone lines, which really bugged me. Like,
Does anyone? Yeah. They use a phone in this movie. Never mind. Yeah, they had
and
yeah,
like a payphone.
yeah, I suppose.
Like, once again, this is like civil unrest. This isn't actually like any form of dystopic. Like, there's still like some like, what I'm saying is the world hasn't devolved into enough anarchy at this point because they still have some form of class in this society that hasn't completely and entirely
It
crumbled
feels
yet.
like this is something that like could recover. Like like given like a few like sensible reforms or
Mhm.
whatever, this could probably this could all blow over in like a couple of years if they like played their cards right or someone played their cards right. But yeah, like there are
Mhm.
people in this like you can get sophisticated medical attention in this. Yeah,
Oh yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
no, full on we have 2 people that go to like a serious big time hospital visits that like you kind of live through that would absolutely be a death sentence in a like even like maybe you move this movie back 10 years and just it'd be unthinkable for some of these people to live. But yeah, no, it's very much just like
And
stuff going on, not so yeah, I see your point.
I
Yeah.
really love how much of this is hindering on the price of oil.
Yeah.
Like, oil runs out and all of a sudden, like, the whole world, like, all of Australia is shutting down and nobody's like, "Hey, maybe just, like, um, don't drive a car?" Like, nobody's like, "Hey, let's, like, maybe just, like, start biking places," or, like, "I live in a city, this doesn't affect me at
Well,
all because
if
like, all of my
see Cody,
commodities are fairly close. Like,
if you let people ride bicycles, they won't buy cars they can't afford. And then we won't, and if they're not buying cars they can't afford, we can't sell the same car to 40 people and make like a ton of money off that. So really that's the important thing for the economy. It drives the GDP up, you see, Cody. And what's most important is that the people making money right now are the ones that are making money in 2 months. It, this change isn't worth it because that would maybe lower the GDP, because if like not
yeah,
right
but
now
like
4 people are making
I
money,
would,
if in your situation only one person makes money, so now who's the idiot?
but I know you're trying to be like, this is clearly supposed to be satire, but at this point, but like I don't think Australia is building cars.
Someone in Australia makes cars. There's definitely a car.
Yeah, but they're not profiting massively off of it. Like they,
Well, no, well you
yeah, but are they building cars to sell here, or are they building cars to like export
well
out into like the other
sell like
parts
to
of the world
half of that
that will
Oceania,
pay
like
better
sell
for it?
to all those islands and whatnot. Like you're competing with like China market, but that's actually like a huge, like here's the thing about Australia, it is in the middle of the fucking ocean. Like you do not realize how in the middle of the fucking ocean Australia really is. Australia is so in the middle of the ocean that some flat earthers do not believe it exists, because having Australia in the location it does is like antithetical to a flat earth for some models of that. So like they just say, oh, Australia's not real, because if it were, that would mean the flat Earth can't exist, because it's just so far away from everything else. And there's like, I say it's so far away from everything else, but there's like islands that populate that. Granted, that's probably you're selling like small like micro cars and whatnot, but it's still some auto manufacturing. Also planes, like someone would make planes and
And then
boats.
and then there's like this weird divide between
You got caught up on the fact that I said that some people
like
think Australia
part of
isn't existing.
yeah. No. No. I kind of bought past that whole entire analogy as soon as you mentioned flat Earth. Like my thought process was going more towards like they make this one biker gang seem like they're like commonplace, but like everything else that we learned from the movie is that they're like the one exception to the rule of the like civilizations collapsing. They are the only people who are like, "Oh, well, gas is going to shit. Start up my biker gang, posse and, start stealing gas." Like, they're the once
It is
again,
implied there are more of them, but
it feels more like a criminal element than commonplace.
yeah, yeah. Like we said earlier,
So
this place needed like a push over the edge to make it apocalyptic, and I think that's really a thing that maybe we should address
mhm.
about like science fiction. Is this just like dystopic futures are like shit actually sucks for some people more than you think it does. Like like some of this stuff, like you can make up a bunch of stuff about like what happens in like the Hunger Games. Some of that stuff really happens. No, they don't have like a literal like arena where they send children into, but they do all sorts of like controlling of the media and stuff in real life. There's lots of that dystopic shit that just happens. Like do we need to wait for literal 1984 to happen, or do we just like realize that like Nazi Germany is already like 65% of the way there and realize that's enough? What percentage of Big Brother is bad at what point? I think that's something we don't realize. I think kind of why I wanted to do this. Like I wanted us to do this to like talk about dystopias, because this is like this dystopia. It's like in a way not so bad, like you saying, like this is a thing where like a lot of people are living. There's like an unspoken thing. I think that what you could compare this to, actually, you know what this is probably like? Fucking Colombia with like Pablo Escobar, where like people are just like a lot of people are living their lives, but there's just like this one super violent gang running around that's just like blowing up a pharmacy occasionally for some bullshit reason, and that's what they're dealing with. So this is like weird for Australia, but it's just a thing that's happening in Colombia, not like I guess that's maybe not happening until like the 80s, but it's not far off. Like this is a thing. Like people live like
Mhm.
this. I think is the thing we need to address. Like this is we're calling this dystopian, but some people live like this. That's something we. There are places where like it's largely a functioning society, but there's just like a criminal gang that the police can't stop or whatever, and like there's just no one can,
Mhm.
and like people aren't able to stop it just yet. And this could all like again, maybe it all just takes like one good strike where they get the leadership of this, and the gang disperses. Like this is like that's I think why the disconnect of this being dystopian is just like this could just be someone's reality, just not I think we made our point here,
Mhm.
actually. On to the movie again. We're still open. I haven't even gone past the first scene. I just realized I thought maybe I had like covered like a scene or two, but I'm like, nope, nope. I just did like the first sentence of this, and we went off on it.
So, I actually have something to nitpick here because this, actually kind of, weirdly ticked one of my boxes for me. So, the movie opens with the opening credits, and every single opening credits read "director," and then it said equals George Miller.
Oh, yeah. I suppose that was a thing, wasn't it?
Did you not pick up on that? Or
No,
are you just not as angry about it as I am?
no, I didn't.
Because
Yeah,
normally it's
it's just the guy's
it's
name,
just a
and there's
dash,
no
right?
yeah, like a dash or just like nothing at all. They're put on
Or
different lines. Yeah, yeah.
directed by, I don't know why,
Or the words are just
and
grouped together.
everything's
Yeah.
equal.
Yeah. That's
Mhm.
strange. Yeah. I don't know if that was a thing in the 70s or not. Maybe there's a thing even about like Australian crediting laws. Who knows? Yeah, interesting. So we notice one of our side characters spying on a couple having sex through a rifle scope, using it as binoculars. And that's an opening scene of
Yeah.
this movie. And as he's doing it, his partner gets like a radio call that they need to do their fucking job and quit like pointing possibly loaded guns at people who aren't doing anything wrong. I mean, the public decency, I guess, but they're in a field. I think they thought they were not being watched. They thought they were in a pretty private place, but whatever. I'm not gonna get into the pedantics of public nudity. So the partner honks, scaring away the couple who have to run butt naked through a field of like canola. I don't know. I don't think it's canola. It doesn't seem yellow enough.
And, this cop's just a g I don't know.
Skeezy fat guy. It's yeah.
These guys weren't hurting anybody, and this cop just, straight up cock blocked the dude because he, lost, watching privileges? I don't I don't know why you,
I'm not entirely certain what these guys were, what the dynamic here was. Yeah,
you're in the middle of
yeah.
nowhere.
Also, if it was illegal, a cop would be doing something about it. Like just like that'd be a thing he'd be doing.
Yeah.
Like a cop would absolutely like bother these people in real life.
And, once again, my thing about bright yellow fucking cop
Yeah.
vehicles, you'd think that the people, having sex would be like, "Why is this cop clearly watching us through
I think he's watching over
a
like a.
gun
I think there's a
scope?"
bit of a ledge between them actually, like a hill ledge. I think
Okay,
it's not super clear. Also, maybe they started and then they pulled up.
but, wouldn't that be worse? Because you're a farmer, you live on dirt fucking
Yeah,
roads, you can hear people coming from, I don't know, 2, 3 kilometers, in either way.
yeah. Yeah. It depends if they're on gravel. I don't remember if they were on gravel, but yeah,
Mhm.
because gravel's loud.
Yeah, okay. Either way,
Anyway,
semantics are still here, I don't like it.
anyway. So a crazy man has stolen a cop car after he had escaped from imprisonment, and he is called the Knight Rider. No relation to the Knight Rider of. Is that show out yet at this time? Is the show Knight Rider out? Although he's not Knight
What do you
Rider,
mean out?
he's Knight, like night is in like dark, not night is in a night.
What do you mean by out?
Is no, this is 3 years before Knight Rider started being a thing. Knight Rider is 1982.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, 4 seasons.
So
No,
no.
yeah. So yeah, this is if anything, Knight Rider is referencing Mad Max, which would admittedly make sense. Like that's a car show. This is a car show.
I'm
Yeah.
okay.
So yeah, he's doing this thing, and he's like giving a whole speech because he's got the cop radio too, and like he can hear the cop radios, which is another thing. The entire cop radio frequency is compromised. Actually, that's a funny
Yeah.
story. Like they couldn't use their the guys making this. They did a lot of guerrilla filmmaking for the street scenes, and they couldn't use walkie talkies because it would have coincided with because they're too close in frequency to the the cop radios. So they might have gotten caught. So they couldn't use walkie talkies. Eventually they get like sort of like some amount of permission from the local police because they kind of got in on the idea. But yeah,
I was just gonna say, I like the fact that this guy goes on this long ass fucking monologue instead of like, I don't know, trying to be cool about it. Like you have a cop radio. Couldn't you just be like, yeah, sorry about that. This is Officer like so and so back on the line. I was able to like capture the culprit and I'll bring him back to the station as soon as I can, and then just like left.
I think the DC on that deception check is a little high, Cody. I'll just be honest. I think that's a little bit more complicated than you're letting it on.
Yeah, but you have all the information theoretically because you have their fucking cop car, and
Yeah,
like
they know that you have the cop car, which they probably saw you take, because there's already some guys in pursuit of them. These this heavy set guy and the rookie end up like joining the chase. Yeah,
sure, I'll
yeah,
give you that much.
but yeah, and also he doesn't need to be cool. His name is Knight Rider. I think he's already cool. Cutting that out.
Honestly, this guy should have been the fucking main villain
Oh
of
yeah,
this
he is
movie.
so much
Like
cooler than the later
the fact
guys.
that he's not is like so fucking weird because like he's like, I'm best friends with Toe Cutter. I'm like, Toe Cutter sounds like a really shitty fucking like a villain name.
Yeah, no. That's a thing about this. This guy the Knight Rider doesn't survive this chase, just spoilers. And then we end up dealing in the rest of the movie with like his lieutenants and like a couple other guys that are sort of notable. I think that's maybe part of the point of it, maybe. Yeah, no, we deal with like the less impressive antagonists later in the movie. But we'll get to that. So yeah, they're chasing as the heavyset guy and the rookie end up joining the chase. They try to ram the guy but miss, which ends up with them getting some minor damage to the car. Notably, the heavy set guy says he's going to kill these guys despite barely just joining the chase, which is maybe like a evidence toward how bad this has gotten, I guess is how it's supposed to be taken. I'm willing to give this the benefit of the doubt because this is not like an average uh, cop movie. Like, I don't think this is meant to glorify the police like a lot of American movies would be doing in this fashion. Like, I think if other people were making this, I think it'd be a lot more. These guys would be portrayed as a lot more heroic than they actually are, and I think that's a point that like George and Byron are actually trying to make. But we'll get to that because I have a really good scene where I can talk about that.
Sorry, I just got into like my thought process of like, why aren't they trying to get like ahead of this guy and like because notoriously they have spike strips for taking out like high speed pursuits, and I can't figure out when they actually became more commonplace in utilization, but like they like caltrops
Oh
have been
yeah,
around
no,
since
yeah.
like 300 BC. Like I don't know, like they've got to be using these at this point in time.
Strike strip Wikipedia. What does it say? Yeah, no, they date
You're
back to
reading the
like
same Wikipedia page as
yeah,
I
no,
am.
they date back to like thousands of years. They can be a little bit difficult. I think yeah, there's some notation here about like them being sort of dangerous because like guys will just run into the like go around them because they can be noticed. and like you do have to, even if you want to like trap them, yeah,
1967.
is when they like invented the modern ones. You figure?
The FIM 92 Stinger is what it was
Hmm.
called. Man, propelled air defense system. I have no clue what the fuck I'm looking at
Oh,
anymore.
Stingers. Okay.
Apparently this is
Yeah,
yeah,
there's also like a. Yeah, I think you looked
uh
up like the missile
homing
launcher.
surface to air missile. Apparently.
But yeah, no, I think there's some danger involved, and maybe they just don't have someone who's ahead of them. I'm not convinced this like detachment has more than these 6 guys or 7 guys that we see. To be perfectly honest,
Yeah.
yeah, because like there are times when like okay, there's guys off screen doing other stuff, but I think there may just be these 7 guys that we see in the movie. Like these 4 Goose, the motorcycle guy, Max, and then their boss. And I guess there's like a guy above them who's like a district guy. So maybe 8, which he was weird. He just had like a samurai sword on him and called himself Samurai. So that's something interesting.
I don't know.
Actually, that's yeah.
I give up trying to like understand the extended lore of this movie at this point. It's like it's supposed to be super subtle, and then a lot of the things are just like I don't want to like think of the implications of everything going on in this film because it's a lot.
Yeah, I'm not convinced this is like a large organization. So that's part of it. Although maybe, although yeah, I think this is totally the type of guy that could have. Knight Rider is totally the type of guy that would have just driven around. So they're chasing. We're introduced to Goose, who has to like ditch his like diner dinner to go join this chase on a motorcycle. Just as that happens, they're like heading toward the city, where we see a toddler running on the road and an RV in the middle of the street. The large guy's car ends up like tackling a minivan, like a van. I shouldn't say minivan. I think it's just a regular van, destroying it as Knight Rider gets away a little bit. I don't think the toddler gets run over. I think they get lucky. But yeah, the heavy guy's vehicle gets wrecked, but it's still roadworthy through pure stubborn determination. They drive a bit more. They end up running through an RV a little bit later as they're having trouble catching this guy. The bike ends up needing to like do a slide break, and I think Goose sort of breaks his leg here. He heals a bit through the movie, but he's yeah, I think he breaks his leg because he in the next scene we see him in, he's like walking with like a fancy brace. He gets better, but still.
He gets better like 2 scenes
To be
later.
fair, I think there's some time passing.
I hate it when movies just like jump time without actually. I think this is more so like commonplace in earlier movies, but like, damn, this was like they don't even like give you like a subtitle where it's like 3 days later or like 3 years later or like
But Cody having little,
what?
but Cody having subtitles on the bottom of the screen to denote changes of time breaks your immersion. That's
I don't,
I'm agreeing with you. I'm just
but it
mocking the people.
keeps
Yeah. Oh yeah, no,
consistency.
I sort of agree. Some
Okay,
people, I agree. I was just making fun of the people that say that because I always kind of like disagree. Whenever people like, don't denote location with text, and it's like, yeah, but it helps some people follow the movie, and it helps. A lot of people find it helps immersion, but yeah, no, it's so. Yeah. So the car keeps going. Max ends up in front of Knight Rider and plays chicken with him a bit. After they avoid each other, Max does like a U-turn and chases in, and Knight Rider just starts crying because Max is just able to keep on his ass so reliably. And eventually, they come across a truck that's been jackknifed, and Knight Rider isn't able to avoid it and crashes his car into it, exploding it, ending the chase and ending the best villain of the movie. So yeah, that's a bit of a downgrade after this. After this, Max goes home to his wife and infant child to enjoy some saxophone. I was gonna do a joke, but I forgot I was doing it halfway before after as I was saying the word, even though I wrote it in my notes, and I'm Sort of disappointed. It wasn't a very good joke. I'll admit it.
I mean, it's a better joke than this scene. If they were trying to be tongue in cheek about this scene, that would make sense. Like, oh, the cop goes home and he's for some sax and he's just watching his girlfriend play the saxophone. It still made more sense than like whatever the fuck they need. Like, did the actress herself know how to play saxophone and was like, I need to showcase my abilities, and was like,
They were
hey,
gonna put a sex
I
scene in, but it turned out that like they couldn't do that, so they just needed to like censor it by like adding in like a saxophone scene. So like the adults in the audience would get what was really going on. Some 19 that's some 1940s
I
shit
don't
I
know.
just described. I don't know what Australia has for like a film commission laws. I know they can be strict about that shit, but I also know it's one of those weird countries where like there's a lot of rules, but there's not a lot of rules. And you're just not sure. Like Australians seem chill as heck, but a lot of those
Yeah,
politicians seem pretty fucking conservative somehow. It's one of those places.
yeah.
Yeah. Like here, I don't know if it's gerrymandering or some shit, but or just if like the annoying conservative ones just keep themselves internationally, and it's just like the fun, cool ones that like go like do stuff. I
Okay,
suppose
but
Mel
maybe we're
Gibson's
also like
like a yeah.
overlooking like a
I suppose Mel Gibson's like an exception to my rule I just stated because he is not cool.
like maybe we're just overlooking like a really big cultural difference between like here in the early 1980s. I keep on saying 1980s. It's 1979, and that's just like weird to me. So I just keep on rounding it up.
Yeah,
But maybe like saxophone solos were like way more commonplace than what
I mean, in the Lost
we
Boys, they
think they
kind
were.
of have like a music video thing where the guy's just trying to like do like a power like a hair metal thing with a saxophone. Have you seen that? That song "I Still Believe." Just Google the picture, like Google image it, like "I Still Believe" music video, and you'll see what I'm talking about. But yeah, I don't. Also, I know like they have like laws against like violent video games and shit there that are like really obtrusive. But yeah, I don't know. Also, speaking of Mel Gibson, this is actually like one of those movies. It's just like every Mel Gibson movie. I think I made this joke in the Braveheart movie, where it's just like every Mel Gibson movie is just like Mel Gibson saying, "I'm a man of peace. I just want to go home and be with my family," and someone's just like, "But Steve, they've got your family." No. And that's most Mel Gibson movies, up to and including the modern day.
I don't know how like any real like decent Mel Gibson movie. Like I've never watched. Like I didn't care for Braveheart,
Yeah, no,
and I think we talked about the Braveheart Mel Gibson
that was our big.
or all the Mel Gibson shit in Braveheart. But
And also, I guess it doesn't seem like he was doing any of that shit in like 1979. It all seems like stuff that appeared in like the 1990s. So it's not terribly
mhm.
relevant to this. Other than mention that, like, yeah, just so you know, he's currently a piece of shit. But yeah, I like Road Warrior, but like he doesn't talk that much in that one, really. Like it's notably he's not really the main. He's barely even the main character of that movie. Like the movies take on a pretty different tone. Like in this, he's like certainly the main character. This in 3 he is, but in like 2 and
Mhm.
4, not really. Like other like he's prominent, but he's and like dry like a serious portion of the action, but he's the motivations of the movies are not his own. 3 even then not really, but he is helping people of his own volition without like he does like on his own part volunteer.
I'd also like to point out that this is actually Mel Gibson's like third movie.
Yeah. No, he's pretty young in this yet.
In 1971, he did a movie. So this would have been 8 years before. He did a movie called "I Promised You a Rose Garden." He was an uncredited baseball player. He did Summer City as Scallop, and also in 1971. And then after 8 years, he made Mad Max.
Yeah.
But I guess he did like in those 8 years he did some television work, some theater work and stuff like that in between. So like he had other acting roles before this, but like this is his third movie. So
And like, this movie that made like this is one of those lucky things where like a low budget movie gets like a future big actor.
mhm.
Yeah, 79. He's born in 56, so that makes him 23 in this. Am I getting the math right on that?
I
79.
don't know, math's hard. I don't want to
I think
think.
it's I think he was 20. Yeah, he's just a baby in this, 23. I don't like that I called him a baby. I don't like it. I'm only like 3 years older than that, and it's makes me feel older than I'm really. I don't like that. Moving on.
Also, speaking of babies in this movie, their kid's name is fucking Scrog.
Yeah, that was a thing.
Which is kind of funny because like I looked into this and apparently Scrog's like it's Australian slang. So we don't actually know the name of their kid, but like they just call this baby Scrog. And like I'd like to think that like this kid's been known still as Scrog for like his whole entire life, and then one time they're like, "Yeah, Daniel, come here," and he's like, "Who the fuck is Daniel?"
I I mean, spoilers. He doesn't get that old. They killed his baby later in the movie, just as a reminder. Um,
Yeah, well,
so yeah, they're at home. He has to. Max has to go to work early next morning, and yeah, we cut to his work. Meanwhile, at the halls of justice, which is what the police station is called in this. Again, I think did we do Judge Dredd last? No, we did Judge Dredd before. Second episode before this. So we had two movies almost in a row with the Hall of Justice in them. So a lot of Hall of Justice in
mhm.
this. And he's brought in really early by Goose, who like shows off this fancy new ride, a big vehicle with a big V8 engine, and this is like the iconic Mad Max car. And he's like, "Yeah, this is really cool. Where'd you get it?" And he's like, "Yeah, well, we get parts here and there, and yeah, we just got." The mechanics on this movie are all really skeezy. Every mechanic in this movie is just like,
Oh,
yeah,
so
every mechanic in this movie is just like, well, I get my parts here and there, if you know what I mean. And yeah, it's pointed out that this is sort of a bribe because Max has been apparently they've been talking, and Max has been talking about leaving the Force, and this fancy new car is a way of like convincing him to stay so he can drive the fancy new workmobile. Because in a scene we get this later after this, after his boss is talking to his boss's boss, the guy with the samurai sword is there. He's just saying, "Hey, we need a hero, so we're gonna spend all this extra money on this guy to keep him to stay." And in the next scene, we get to see that Max took out four crazy guys, like after that night in a big pursuit. So this is getting to be a very dangerous job. It's like I think Miller's original justification for the dystopic setting is to make these the amount of violence in this movie more realistic. Because like if this was just happening in like regular Australia, we'd be slightly suspicious. Like I mean, giant scorpions, those are normal, but like car chases, still less so. Well, Australia's a strange place, not that strange though. And after they do this, one of the boss points out to Max that the rest of Knight Rider's gang is kind of going to be looking for him because he killed their boss, and they kind of got like a cult thing going on where they're like big fans of him. And the next scene we get, it's with the biker gang, where they're going to a train station to pick up Knight Rider's coffin. It's a smaller coffin than it probably should be because there's not as much left of him. Like even if they were like folding him in a particular way, I think the box is still a little small. So like they definitely didn't find some things. So yeah. So they do a whole thing where they're like barging around this small town. Because I guess this is for whatever reason the body ended up here. It's weird. The main villain, Toe Cutter, is wandering about town. They end up beating a guy up for spraying a milkshake in his face and then like tying him behind a motorcycle and dragging him off. When a couple who is observing all this try to leave the scene, They are chased down by the motorcycle gang and lynched out. And the boy is chased off, not wearing any pants. They've both him and the girl are implied to have been violated and beaten, and their vehicle has been destroyed. But thankfully, Max and Goose come across this scene. They see the boyfriend wandering off. They just see him running away. They can't get him. They don't chase after him because they got better things to worry about. But like, we know that's the guy that just got beat up. And then they find the crash site where one of the bikers, Johnny Boy, I think is what they call him, is strung out on drugs. They arrest him and drive the girl back home, presumably, after convincing her that they're not going to hurt her.
Is this before or after they showed this? In one of the scenes, they had this cool motorcycle where it was a motorcycle and
That's where
with the sidecar on it.
Yeah, they're radioed while they're talking to those guys to go to this. That's the scene where they get.
That was a really cool.
Yeah, they show up. This couple's in like this motorcycle that has like a sidecar where just like the person is in like a domed head, has like a dome over their head, and it's like a completely enclosed sidecar. And it's really neat looking. And they also mention that's an important scene. I'm glad you brought us back to that. Goose hands this couple a get out of jail free card. He refers to it as. And I'm not certain he's not being serious about what that is. It could be an expression, but I'm not convinced it isn't. It is. Like, I'm saying these cops are sort of corrupt and they're giving someone a literal like, hey, these guys are my friend, let them off thing going on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because this is just supposed to be dystopian. These guys could be mildly corrupt. I think that's part of the possibility. Goose calls the boyfriend who with no pants a turkey during this scene, which is kind of funny.
Yeah.
This is like, what a turkey. You're a turkey. So yeah, they've arrested this guy. As the biker gang is driving out of town with Knight Rider's coffin. What's the guy's name? Not Linger? Toe Cutter? Toe Cutter. Toe Cutter tells one of the I guess his lieutenants, Bubba, to go back to town to go get Johnny. Not for Johnny, but presumably so they can get information about like who caught them and get some information. We'll find out this is so that they can get to the guy who killed Knight Rider. Well, sort of killed Knight Rider, got himself killed, let's be honest. But they're going to blame the police because they're the villains of the movie. But yeah, Bubba essentially gets some lawyers to go get Johnny, and they end up getting Johnny out because no one lodged a complaint against these bikers because presumably they're so scared of them. And to be fair, they did just kill 3 people over basically nothing. They killed the couple over nothing. The one guy they did kill, admittedly spread a milkshake in his face, but that's not a crime. You could throw an entire milkshake at someone and not be
also,
a crime.
I don't know. They definitely didn't kill the milkshake guy.
Well, they were dragging him behind a motorcycle. I think that.
Or sorry, they didn't kill the.
Or yeah.
Okay, that might have killed him. They didn't kill.
They beat up and violated a couple for doing nothing. Sorry, that's to be fair. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. To get the charges perfectly accurate.
And I think it was implied they might have also roughed up the train driver or the trained person.
They were intimidating him pretty hard, if nothing else. I don't know that they did anything to him.
I think Toe Cutter at one point in time, because they showed like I think 2 of the gang members were carrying the train driver away, and then Toe Cutter motioned to another one of his lieutenants, and then 2 other of the bike gang members started following the train driver after that. So
yeah, could be.
There's some implication there.
True. But yeah, pretty random violence. Anyway, after Johnny is getting released, Goose is all pissed off, and beats him up outside the police station as they're trying to drag him away, or as they're trying to guide him away. So that's a thing. Goose is really angry. And he, as Johnny's going away, they're just like, "Yeah, come on, try this again. We'll get you like we got your buddy Knight Rider." And yeah, that's so they're gonna go after Goose next because they're pretty certain that Goose killed Knight Rider, which isn't true, but whatever. The details aren't terribly important. We meet up with the gang again, and they destroy a mannequin because they say it's a gift from the police. Not sure what happens there. I think there might have been a bug or something, is the implication. Goose is driving around the next day, and his motorcycle malfunctions, and he flies off into a field. Presumably, this is sabotage because we saw one of the biker gang guys wandering about when he drove off. Yeah, he's ends up surviving this incident where he gets thrown from his motorcycle, which is actually pretty remarkable. And he gets a guy to like drop off a truck, so he can drive back into town and get his motorcycle repaired because it's fucked. And on his way back into town in this pickup truck, he gets like a thing thrown in his windshield, and then he ends up flipping the car. And Toe Cutter and Johnny start getting ready to set him on fire. Johnny resists the idea of setting Goose on fire because he just wanted to mess with the guy. Not sure how that's a strange thing. I don't see why Johnny would have a thing about killing people. Maybe that implies they don't kill as many people as were implied to, but they did some pretty horrible stuff. But anyway, ends up that Johnny ends up dropping the match in this altercation, and that sets Goose on fire. Next, we see Goose is underneath a sheet, like a in a cage system in a hospital bed with like a blanket over top of him. Max shows up to go check on him and just notices that Goose is horribly deformed. And I don't think he lasts the night, though he is sort of alive when Max gets there. And he is really disturbed about this, which drives Max to go up to his boss the next day and quit the force. His boss is a big, muscly, mustached man with a bald head, with shaved head. And Max is talking to him, telling him he's going to quit, and that he's not. He's talked about it a few times before, but this time he's serious and he's not like double thinking it. His boss gives him a counter offer, just says, "Hey, have a week vacation. If you still feel that way at the end of it, I'll accept your resignation." The boss is just like, "Hey, we need heroes like you and me." Even though the boss doesn't do anything in the movie, he's notably the guy that doesn't participate in any of the car chases at all. He's muscly. He can maybe do something, but he doesn't. But they're having a big talk about that, and he's just like, "Yeah, take a vacation. If you still feel like that afterwards, you can quit, and I won't argue with you." So yeah, him and his wife Jessie and the baby go on a vacation. I think they buy a dog because they show up at a farmer's place and just the farmer hands them off a dog. So I think they buy a dog, which is fair. You can buy dogs or got a dog. I don't know that they paid for this thing. Nice little red dog, medium sized thing, perfect size. I like that size of a dog where it's not like too big, but not like a cat in size. Oh yeah, so they show up at a truck stop so that they can get a spare tire fixed. The truck stop guy is pretty shady, and while they're doing this, Jesse takes the baby out or the toddler out to get some ice cream. So they drive down the road to a store to get some. But coincidentally, the Knight Rider biker gang sees them and tries to accost them, but she gets away, and her and Max just drive off without even picking up their tire. So they manage to get away from the bikers just then, and I guess they're not able to catch up. So they all they have is just like the guy wandered off, given the instructions of what the mechanic said was told about where they were going. And they just said, "Oh, we're going north, maybe." Though the biker gang does manage to track down Max a little later. They head to a farm presumably, I think these are like one of their parents or something, or like an aunt and uncle or a friend. But yeah, they hang out at this farm.
Actually, as just looking this up currently, so because this has really bugged
Yeah.
me, and it was, I don't think it was ever actually like anything actually ever came of this, but like when later on in this scene, the lady that they're staying with goes to go to the phone, and she gets on the phone and she calls she's supposed to call somebody called the Dark One. And I'm reading this right now because I it bugged me. And apparently, in the original script, there was no character called Ziggy. Instead, there was the character of the Dark One, who was Max's driving partner, who had a gruesome accident, as described by Goose and Fat Nancy's
Hmm.
Diner. So, like, this is his parents. Like, this is this guy's parents' farm or something. Like, I don't really fully understand the implication, but like, I don't like. It was such an important like comment that I was like, why is this even like a thing that is never actually fully answered? Because like nobody comes to help Max in this scene. Like the only people that are there is this old lady and this
Yeah.
I'm assuming her son,
Yeah, or something like that.
who's like 35 and mentally disabled.
Yeah. A little bit of a preamble because I did miss this when I was initially going through. They drove off, and I guess a guy had like latched on to the back of the car with a chain, and I guess Jesse kind of inadvertently tore the guy's hand off because they stop a little bit later after they've certain they're out of their way, and yeah, just no hand. Ziggy is like a friend of Max's, I guess, and is a character they talk to about this incident. And yeah, they end up just wandering away. And they end up at this farm with, where is her name? May Swayze. And there's an older guy, or there's a younger guy who's got some developmental issues and is just kind of like a classic character of a guy who's just doesn't have like a lot all his faculties, but is ultimately harmless, who just wanders around the forest a bit. May warns Jesse about him when she goes to go swimming because she's just like, yeah, I know he's big, but he's harmless. Don't worry about him if you see him. Max does some repairs on the car while Jesse goes some swimming with the dog because her and the dog go for a swim. And then some sun tanning. While she's doing her sun tanning, the dog wanders into the woods again and is not seen for a little bit. Jesse heads back to the farm and eventually hears a guy talking or walking around and sees one of the bikers and starts rushing toward the farm. She's running around. She finds that the dog has been hanged by the biker gang, presumably. She bumps into May's son or whatever and screams a little bit because she just thinks he's just a guy who was around while she was being chased. I'm honestly surprised the guy doesn't get shot because that would have happened in a lot of movies. Like because like his what like because Max hears Jesse scream and wanders over to the woods with a shotgun, and the first thing he sees after Jesse wanders out of the woods is this guy who's like wandering behind her, and he's just like, oh wait, and I guess the explanation is that Max knows this guy because May is described as a friend of Max's. So I guess maybe he has some familiarity with these people. So he would know not to shoot that guy. So I guess that's not a issue, but that would have been like an easy thing to happen in a lot of movies. So Max and the big guy go searching around the woods for these guys, but they have snuck out of the woods already and go after. They kidnap Sprong, the baby. Spronk. They kidnap Sprog.
Sprog.
Sprog sounds like an orc name.
As I said Scrog
Yeah.
earlier, it's definitely Sprog.
This is an orc baby. I'm convinced. Anyway, the biker gang kidnaps the orc baby I'm just gonna call him that for now on. He's not in the movie too much longer. It won't be an issue. Jessie sees the guys and she's all scared of them, and they're walking in on her, trying to get like after her. When May shows up, May, the old lady who owns the farm, shows up with a shotgun, fires at him, misses. She never actually hits anyone, but she does manage to corral these guys through the threat of shooting them into a shed and locks it while she and Jesse run away with the baby, with the York baby. They drive off, but I guess the repairs to Max's vehicle or the vehicle don't take, so it ends up breaking down the road, allowing the biker gang to catch up. She sends May sends Jesse to run ahead. While she shoots, aims her shotguns at the bikers, and a pretty badass little sentiment where she's just like, "I'm an old lady and I'm gonna make my stand," and but she misses, and the bikers end up leaving her alone actually, and go yeah.
This lady has polio too.
Oh, is that the explanation?
I think so. I'm not 100% sure about this, but like she has like the metal leg girders that you see with
I didn't notice that.
like people who are fighting up against polio. Anyways, there's so much more that I want to talk about this scene, and let's just throw this out there right now. There's a guy literally just hanging onto a barn wall in this scene, like for no reason. Like it's never explained. It's they're like, we need you to be menacing, I guess. Like what?
Yeah.
Because in another shot, he like at first I was like, okay, maybe they killed the guy and like strung him up above the barn to like show that they mean business or whatever the fuck reason people have for like hanging up kills. But the guy is like completely fine, and like he jumps down off this barn that he was like just hugging for no apparent reason. Like, was it a directorial choice? Like, was it like, I don't fully understand why they would
You
do
can
that
you
at
can
all.
tell this is kind of like Miller wants to have people dressed up in like crazy leather get-ups, but he just doesn't quite have that budget yet, because he scrounged up this money over like years. He did try to get money from like the Australian arts program, but I guess they weren't into that. Canadian government would have been into that, but that's neither here nor there. Anyway, so the bikers drive past the old lady, and it's shot like they run her over with the motorcycle, but a motorcycle would like if it ran into an upright person would absolutely fall on its side. So I'm guessing they hit her with stuff pretty brutally, although I think maybe she gets run over after she gets knocked down, maybe, but she is grievously wounded, and Sprague is killed on site. Max manages to catch Max, and the a big man, ended up managing to catch up, and he cries a bit, and they end up at the hospital where they like show up. When you think about it, a pretty gruesome scene with like Jesse under on the hospital table, and like I noticed this, her right arm isn't there, like under the sheet, because they're having a scene where where the doctor's talking about what her state, and like I noticed that there. So that's there's like she might, they say she might live, but yeah, she might also not.
This ultimately really pissed me off.
Oh,
This whole scene's just a mess. Let's both be
is
honest.
it? I like that.
Okay, so first of all, let's talk about the dialogue here. One of the doctors come in and they go, "How's the patient doing?" And then the other doctor's like, "I'm a doctor. I'm not a goddamn fortune teller."
I think that's meant.
Like, isn't that just like the weird?
I mean, it's
What?
is like I think it's meant to say that she's not. He's not certain she'll survive. Also, that strikes me as a very Dr. Bones
Yeah,
line.
but why did what?
So
Yeah, but
I don't
why?
know.
Why do you need to make this doctor like slightly more assholish to give out exposition?
I don't know. Maybe this is just
Like this whole scene is exposition. Like fucking this guy's not even talking to Max. He's talking to another doctor. Like they introduced two doctor characters to give out like a whole entire scene where they like, okay, well now we have to pay this extra doctor for lines instead of just having him talk to Mel Gibson about like whether or not his wife is gonna live. And on top of that, they're like, if you wanted to make it shorter, you could have made it shorter by like cutting out the whole fucking I'm a doctor, I'm not a whatchamacallit, I'm not a fortune teller. Like if I walked up to you and like, "Oh, how was your day?" You wouldn't be like, "Well, my day's been good, but it could get a whole shit ton shittier in the next like 20 minutes. I don't know. I'm not a fucking fortune teller." Like I'd be like, "You're an asshole." And then you'd probably think to myself, "Yeah, that was pretty much an asshole move. I don't understand this." Like
okay. I read that scene completely differently. I was like maybe a little bit more distracted by the fact that like this lady is like missing an arm on the gurney behind while they're talking about this. And like I think it's like brought up as like Max doesn't really want to talk to anybody. And if they were talking to Max, it wouldn't be in like the room where like his wife is just out of surgery or whatever and just like looking like right there. But yeah, I know I liked the scene quite a bit. I thought it like drove home what had happened a bit more.
and also like fucking like they zoom out and fucking Max is just standing up against a wall listening to everything that's just been said. Fucking okay, so let's frame this completely different, okay? If Mel Gibson was in the room sitting there and he's like, "Hey doc, how's my wife?" Do you think he'd be like, "I don't know, I'm a doctor, not a goddamn fortune teller." Would he like I'd just knock that doctor right out there on the spot because like it's like such shitty bedside manner. But like I mean, I guess it was like completely taken out of context, but the guy was listening at the door and then fucking Mel Gibson just runs off to like extract his revenge instead of like I don't know, being with his dying wife who's, like, literally dying on a fucking table, like, 10 feet away from him. I don't know why they've gotta, like, make this so like, you can have that whole scene with, like, at least some emotional relevancy
I
that, like, would actually drive home this, like, really, quite frankly, in my opinion, at least, like, it's estranged love story you've got going on because I don't feel any fucking chemistry between these 2 characters at this point.
Okay,
Like
yeah. Counterpoint on the scene, like he had done the whole thing where like he had wandered into someone's a dying person's hospital room and like see the brutal state he's in. We've already done that scene once, and like we know what his reaction to that was where he just like totally dissociated that where Goose's injured form. Like he just straight up said that thing in there is not Goose. Like is almost like a really shitty line like a shitty thing to say. And like we know how he reacts to somebody being in the ER dead like that, and like he's just noted like he's going through that whole scenario basically again, and noted and just like I think he can't even bear to be in the room. Like I think that would just be too much for him. So he goes off knowing that the guys who not only killed his best presumably his best friend are also just killed his wife and like maybe killed his wife and child, definitely killed his child, and he's just can't even go do anything. So the only thing he can think to do is just go do something about it because he can't stand to go in there and like look at his wife like that. I think that's a perfectly like interesting character moment. On a less serious note, I think George Miller would know more about what a ER is like than I would because he worked in an ER. To be fair, like he was an ER guy. Maybe he knows something we don't.
I mean, I don't know. If he's an ER guy, then he did like I'll give him this much credit. This is his first movie. maybe his dialogue skills have somewhat improved over the years. Maybe he
Eh,
needed to put like
I don't know.
uh
Have they? Well, to be fair, he hasn't gotten like
I
more
don't know.
dramatic over the
I've
years. He's gotten weirder over the years. Let's be perfectly honest. Um, the dialogue has gotten stranger with time, if anything.
I'm I don't think I've talked about this earlier, but I was going to talk about it. If you Google search George Miller, his directorial debut, like his directorial work, is so weird. He's done all the Mad Maxes. He did the Twilight Zone, The Witches of Eastgate,
Eastwick. Yep.
Lorenzo's Oil. But in 1995, he wrote Babe,
And it's
and then in 1998 he wrote Babe, Pig in the City, and also directed it. He did Happy Feet,
yeah,
Happy Feet 2, and then Mad Max Fury Road. Like he went on
such a
this
strange
weird
guy.
like Disney kick for a while.
I mean, frankly, good for him. I'm happy for him to he gets to do what he wants, I guess.
Or maybe he doesn't. Like maybe he took Happy Feet and Happy Feet 2 because he needs the money, but like
Yeah, and I don't really like Happy Feet.
because I mean you can just be a director for hire,
True.
correct?
He did have his own production company for a bit, but that went under. I think that's part of the reason why Fury Road took so long to do, is because the production company went under while he was doing it, so he needed to like go to some bigger production company and get the money there. So yeah, Mad Max, who is now not just mad, he's angry. I was saving that line the entire time. Cody's very disappointed in me.
I am.
Yeah. He goes to get the black pursuit vehicle and goes to the mechanic to get information. He tortures the guy and gets some information about where the guys are, and he manages to track them down to their region. He knocks a bunch of them off of the road and kills a bunch of the gang on a bridge while running them over a bridge. But they get wise to him after this, so they lure him into an ambush by having one guy off on like total his bike on the side of the road, and then a guy just shoots him from the brush, and then the entire biker gang just wanders out. They run over his arm with a motorcycle, which yeah, it could break something, but I've seen heavy things like that run over a guy before, and it doesn't hurt anyone. Although that'd probably hurt the motorcycle just as much. Motorcycles aren't the best for running people over. We do actually just have a friend that like hit a deer and like skidded like 100 feet down the road. He's fine now, but we know like motorcycles are famously can knock you around quite a bit.
Also, his wife just lost her arm to a motorcycle, probably from
Yeah.
I'm gonna say fairly similar
Yeah.
situations, probably, but I'm not 100% sure on this.
Yeah, yeah. The exact nature of her like death is or injuries are not like shown on screen. We get like aftermath shots to like compensate for that, to like show us how brutal it was, but it's not shown itself on screen. I don't even think we see any blood in that scene, to be honest, which their baby should be. But yeah, this guy in the brush managed to shoot Max in his leg. Notably, not the leg that handles the gas pedal, which is pretty thankful for Max. He manages to shoot Bubba, who is one of the main biker guys, and then manages to wander his way to his car and chases off a few more of the bikers.
Is that true? I was gonna ask, is that true? Because I thought
no, it shoots his.
I thought he took the bullet to the left leg.
Yeah, but you do your pedal with your right leg.
But they're in Australia.
I don't think they don't switch around the pedals though. They switch around the position of the vehicle. Also, Australia, I think, drives the same way we do. I don't think they drive on the left there.
I've driven cars.
Yep.
I do not drive cars. And also I've never driven a car in Australia, so I mean, arguably.
Yeah, no, I think it's not his pedal leg, if I'm remembering correctly. I could be wrong, but I think I'm right, which is the most important thing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, he manages to chase down Toe Cutter. Is that his name? Toe Cutter? That's right? Yep, Toe Cutter. Yeah, they chase he chases Toe Cutter down and manages to
You've asked me this.
Yep. Yep.
like
I am
twice.
bad with names. I am sorry. So yeah, he manages to chase Toe Cutter into the grill of a semi truck where he is like visually ran over, which I guess they do with a dummy, but it's a pretty like brutal scene. They just going under the wheels like that, which different from a motorcycle would be a lot more lethal. That's more like a lot more like several tons on over and over again over a guy's body. So Toe Cutter is dead. And for the last kill, we get Johnny Boy, who is who Max tracks down a good while later, looting a car crash site and trying to steal a guy's boots. Max handcuffs the guy to the car which is leaking gasoline. He sets up a lighter and hands him a hacksaw and says, "Look, it'll take you 10 minutes to hack through the chain, 5 minutes to hack through your leg. Do what you have to get out of here before that lighter hits the gasoline." And then he drives off to Johnny's protests. In contrast to like an earlier scene where he'd been like struggling to kill a guy, although that doesn't mean much because Johnny's still like a monster. Like he did participate in like rape probably and other acts of violence. Yeah, this is. I think that's part of like a scene that like states that like Max's the police force is not so different from the gangs. This came up when he was talking to his boss about quitting. He was just saying, "Look, I'm afraid I'm becoming like one of them, and like I'm just enjoying it too out there, and I don't think I'm doing much different from them." And there's evidence to that point. Like normally that's just like a throwaway line, and I think it's maybe like because of this is because this film's doing it correctly, and a lot of films aren't doing it correctly, and they're trying to rip this off. But like there's scenes showing that these guys are like more violent than they maybe should be. Like the larger guy at the beginning saying he's going to kill that guy. The incident where Goose gives out that get out jail free card. The vaguely semi-fascist undertones of what the police chief said. They're not strong fascist like I'm saying undertones that like you could read into it if you were like thinking about it. Like it's not inconsistent with what's something that like a fascist would say. They talk a lot about like being heroes and whatnot, and like it's not necessarily a fascist speech, but it could be. And that's just what I'm trying to say. And then there's Max's own actions, which are quite brutal, even if he is driven to the brink. And he does note that like he's pretty brutal beforehand, and he's like afraid he's like enjoying it. And we do see some evidence for that on screen. So I think that's done quite well. And it's always nice to see a trope done correctly, which is nice. So, yeah, our movie ends with Max driving off and the car exploding, not knowing what happened to Johnny, or precisely how much time has passed. I think, presume it seems like it's less than 5 minutes. So, yeah, and that's the end of the movie. Just like not a lot of preamble exposition after that. It's just over pretty blackly. In contrast to a lot of the other Mad Max movies. That's the end of the movie. What do you think? Final points to be made.
There's a couple of things that I so this scene in itself, like the final like revenge scene, kind of drew on for fairly long. I didn't really care for the fact that like the last person he hunted down was like I almost think,
The least vile guy, let's be honest.
and I'm pretty sure that like, well, I
Yeah.
mean,
Of the bikers.
sure,
Debatably, I think
yeah,
even. Debatably. I think it's meant to be a bit anticlimactic, to be honest. I think it's kind of like meant to like give the impression that revenge is like this empty thing, and it doesn't want and wants to like portray it in its least glorious. And I think that movie does that. This movie does that sort of well.
but that's once again open to
True.
interpretations. What I think happened here is George Miller wanted to make something that was fairly self-contained. Um, that's pretty much evident in the fact that he only had maybe a $4,000 budget to make this film. I don't think he expected it to surpass much more than that. He did it as like, "Oh, look at me, I can make a film" type ordeal. Once it became so popular that he needed to follow up on it, that's when he started running into issues. Because in my opinion, like, if you were to kill off a like, why would you kill off every single of your bad guys in this story, especially when you left the ending of the little Johnny, or Johnny the kid, whatever the
Yeah.
fuck his name is. Why would you leave his death so open-ended, and then by the next film have absolutely no follow-up to that?
Yeah, it's a very anthology
Like, you
series,
could've
if
made it a
anything.
tie-in story, tied it on, but also, like, if that's the case at that point in time, why wouldn't you, like, use Toe Cutter as, like, the final guy that gets killed? Like, you've built up this big end game boss, and by the by the end of it, like, that's the 3rd boss, and then you've got to go kill another boss on top of that.
Yeah,
Like,
like, I didn't even notice the toe cutter was the one that got run over the first time while I was watching it. I looked it up out later just to be sure, but
neither
yeah.
did I, and the problem is with the whole entire scene is he runs, like, 2/3 of a biker gang off of a fucking bridge. I'm assuming a lot of them 'em aren't as dead as what they made out. Like,
Yeah, maybe.
some people can swim, and I don't think that, like, he did enough damage to their motorcycles to kill them on impact or anything like that. So, like, yeah, half that biker gang is still out there, or at least 4 or 5 of the people in that biker gang are still out there. They were all wearing helmets, so it's hard to identify it. A lot of your cuts in this movie are done weird
Yeah.
as a director. And once again, I think this all points to this is, like, just supposed to be as I was saying, in the is as I think this is just all pointing to the fact that, George Miller's this is his first movie, and the fact that, it was supposed to be self-contained, and not this whole, 5, 6 movie, 5, 6 movie anthology.
Yeah, like, all the Mad Maxes are really self-contained. George Miller said a lot of the cinematography choices in this were like, he wanted to make, like, a silent film with sound, which kinda makes sense. I've seen, like,
Mhm.
the odd bit of silent movies, and yeah, they are kinda like this. Mind you, this is, way more technically advanced than any almost any silent film. Like, those famously have, like, very primitive cinematography, and this has, decent, like, cinematography. They're all very separate, and, like, I don't think Max's character is even consistent across all the movies, to be honest. He's very much, yeah. Yeah. Max is very much just like the character he
Do you know
uses.
how
What's that?
inconsistent do you know how inconsistent Max is in this film?
Well, I mean, he is mad.
No, 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 no. He's so inconsistent in this film that halfway through it, he becomes Tom Hardy.
There we go. Yep.
For those of you who don't follow anything, Mel Gibson was ousted for the role and replaced with Tom Hardy, who's I think like 20 years younger than Mel Gibson.
Mel Gibson is currently 66. He would have been like 60-ish around the time before Fury Road came out. I mean, like, who am I going to argue about? Uh, God forbid Steve Miller just be like, "Hey, Mel, I know you were in the last three, but I just think, I just don't feel having like like an old racist dude be in my movie. Is that okay? Like, we're just gonna do things that way. All right, see you in hell, buddy." Like, I don't think I don't think it's ever been said that George Miller doesn't like Mel Gibson, but I can totally like imagine George Miller not liking Mel Gibson very much, because George Miller is like way better at everything than Mel Gibson. Mel Gibson gets more Oscars, but George Miller is definitely a lot more original. Yeah, I mean, like, George, like, yeah. Anyway, I think you're like, I've given it a very charitable interpretation, and I think your points also have some merit, but, like, I think if just we're giving it different interpretations of this, and I think it worked a lot better for me when I'm like, I think it's the messages of this film, I think it's trying to get past is like revenge is deeply unsatisfying. The law enforcement isn't necessarily better than the villains, and or the law enforcement isn't necessarily entirely without fault. I think are like the messages they're trying to get to this. And I think maybe it's just like equaling out violence. It's like violence does not get less messy when someone else does it. I think maybe. But I don't think like again, I don't think this film has like a huge moral like compass thing. I think it just maybe is making something internally pointed. I don't think it's like a huge like best way to make these points. I think it's just a point it's trying to make vaguely while being like a semi decent action movie.
I think you explain that best by stating I'm being very charitable with the film
Yeah.
because I don't think anybody is looking for some deeper meaning behind the film Mad Max. I think it's got its own selling points within the fact that it's an action movie um, featuring cars and car chases. And I think that a lot of people are watching it just for that. I don't think anybody's like, well, the social structure of the MFP in this is it's shady at best, but like it's you're watching it because it's kind of violent, and that's kind of its draw.
Yeah,
So
totally valid. Like it does what it does good, but I don't think it necessarily like reaches like a high level of quality, like a high level of storytelling. It's just I don't think it falls into a lot of pits that some like lesser action movies fall into, which I think is a lot. It means maybe more than it should to me, to be honest. But I think it's a thing.
I know that this is probably not what people are looking to hear from anything, but like I want just like some form of like emotional depth to some of my action heroes where like these characters didn't get it done for me at all. Like I didn't sure there was some like romance, a saxophone solo, a kid, the death of a kid, and then eventually the death of a wife that got like I didn't buy it, but like I don't know.
I think it's moderately better than like an average action film.
I, here's my thing, like if it's gonna like be like claim to be a post-apocalyptic and then not really promise me anything on that much, like on that front at all, then like you've kind of already like shit the bed for like what this movie has as like a major drawing point for it. So I'm gonna be a little less charitable because of that, because like notoriously Mad Max is known for like it's kind of a dystopic view
Yeah.
after the fact, and then this kind of doesn't follow through with any of that, and I would have liked to seen at least some build up to what Mad Max could have
Yeah.
became if they just kind of followed the opening principles that they set out for themselves when initially building it. But once again, I think that has more to do with George Miller at the time than it has to do with anything else and what Mad Max eventually became. So
So what do you give the movie, Cody?
like I'm gonna give the movie probably about like 3 out of 10 to like 4 out of 10, and I'm doing this solely based on the fact that it's an action movie.
Hmm.
That's about it. It's got explosions and some violence. Besides that, it doesn't really have a plot, or at least a plot that like you don't have to try and make implications for. Once again, I've never seen any of the other Mad Maxes.
Really?
I think I played like 5 minutes of the Mad Max. No, I've never.
Oh.
Nope.
I mean, like Fury Road's probably, in one of my opinion, one of the best action movies that exists. So, like, watch Fury. Like, they're all super self-contained. Like, you do not need to watch these in a particular order. So you can just like four's
Yeah.
probably the best, two's the second best, but yeah, you at least watch Fury Road. Fury Road's probably one of the best action movies out there. Yeah,
hmm
but yeah,
Also,
go.
I also think Rick and Morty parodied the Mad Max thing, and I think they did it pretty decently. And like they showed the whole domestic side of like the raiders in Mad Max, and that was kind of funny. But that's kind of off topic. And like "Welcome to the Thunderdome" is like a very iconic line. I know that it's part of the Mad Max series, but if you ask me where it came from, I couldn't tell you. I'm
Beyond
pretty sure I want to
Thunderdome
say
is the
2,
third film.
but it could have been 3.
Yeah, it's 3.
Yeah,
It's all right. It's the bottom of the,
yeah.
like, it's the worst Mad Max movie, but like I find the Mad Maxes are all pretty good. Like I'd put Mad Max 3 at like 7. I'm giving this an 8. Like I just thought it.
Yeah, once again, I think I could do it better, but it'll be set in PEI. Like, we collapse this civilization on PEI.
Yeah, this just clicked for me really well. I just,
Mhm.
yeah, it clicked for me. I don't know what else to say. It's not the best movie, but it's like I need to rewatch Road Warrior, but I think maybe I think Road Warrior is maybe also an 8, but for different reasons. It might go to 9. I'd need to rewatch it, and then Fury Road's definitely a 9, maybe a 10.
I don't even know what I would say, like, is, like, a solid action movie for me, so
That's something we need to do for season 4. We need to find you a 10 or like a 9, or I don't know if you are you firmly against 10s being a thing? Was that a thing? I can't remember. You might have said that.
I I don't think a movie could ever be, like, even, like, Marvel Endgame, like, the end of this 10-year-long, like, or 20-year-long cinematic, like, journey for me as a person, like, was still, I don't know, like, maybe a 9 at best. And I'm taking a lot of points off of it because they used one of my most hated tropes, which is time travel as a way to retcon a lot of
We'll get into this another time.
like integrity of past films.
Uh,
Um,
like I
like
don't.
maybe
I could talk. I disagree with
some of
that.
the Lords of the Rings.
Yeah, if you want to review a movie that you think would honestly be a 10, we can do that in season 4 sometime. I think that'd be a fun experiment because I've given out a few and you haven't. That might be a fun thing to do.
But I'd also like to point out at the like like the other side of that scale. I've never given a movie like a basic like 0 or like a 1 or a 2 or like really low scores because I've always found that there's at least like something that I liked in this movie.
Yeah,
I don't know what that would be particularly. Like I like some of the aesthetics. I like the fact that there was a saxophone solo, but like it was so out of place that I'm like, why the fuck's that in there? But I'm also like, eh. Or like the guy on the barn.
but yeah, next week we got our season 3 finale, the conclusion to our books that never should have been made into movies. I need to get more consistent with, like, this is why we're not doing a sub theme in season 4, is because I am never consistent with these titles. But yeah, we're doing Ready Player One as like a thing that never should have been made into a series, like into a movie. In preparation, I've mentioned, if you've been paying attention through season 3, I've mentioned I've been reading a book, and I've read it. I read this book. I read Ready Player One. It's, yeah, I didn't. It wasn't very good, but we'll save that for next week. Goodbye. You guys can go home.